Most people over 60 are destroying their legs with the exact exercises their doctors told them to do. I need you to hear that again. The walking programs, the gentle stretches, the take it easy advice. A 2023 study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine tracked over 12,000 adults aged 60 to 85 and found that those who followed conventional low-intensity exercise guidelines lost measurable ankle dorsiflexion and hip mobility at nearly the same rate as sedentary adults. Nearly the same rate, meaning the thing you've been told is helping you, is barely distinguishing you from someone doing nothing at all. Now here's what should really disturb you. The number one predictor of whether you'll end up in assisted living isn't your heart health. It's not your cholesterol. It's not even your cognitive function. It's whether you can get up from a chair without using your hands, walk across a room and lower yourself to the ground and get back up. That's it. Your legs decide where you live the last 20 years of your life. I've spent 19 years in clinical biomechanics and geriatric movement rehabilitation. I've worked with over 4,000 patients past the age of 60, many of them after falls, after hip replacements, after being told by well-meaning professionals that their best years of movement were behind them. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that is a lie. Your legs at 63 or 71 or even 84 have more rebuilding capacity than almost anyone in medicine is willing to admit to you, but you need the right movements, not more movements, not harder movements, the right ones. Today I'm going to give you 3 specific leg movements, just 3. They take less than 15 minutes a day. They require no equipment. And they target the 3 exact mechanisms of leg deterioration that steal mobility from people over 60. I'll explain every single one in detail, what it does inside your body, why it works, and exactly how to perform it so you feel the difference within the first 2 weeks. And the third movement, I'll get to it toward the end, is the one almost nobody is teaching, and it's the one that matters most. So stay with me. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your legs right now, because if you don't understand the problem, the solution won't stick. After the age of about 40, your body begins a process called sarcopenia. That's the gradual loss of skeletal muscle mass. Between 40 and 70, the average person loses roughly 8% of their muscle mass per decade. After 70, that rate doubles. Here's what most people miss: sarcopenia doesn't attack all muscle fibers equally. You have 2 primary types of muscle fibers. Type I fibers are your slow-twitch fibers. They handle endurance, standing in line, walking to the mailbox. They're the last to go. Type II fibers, your fast-twitch fibers, are responsible for power, catching yourself when you trip on a curb, pushing yourself up from a low couch, climbing a step that's a little higher than expected. Type II fibers deteriorate at roughly 2 to 3 times the rate of type I fibers after 60. This is the critical point. When you lose type II fibers in your legs, you don't just get weaker, you get slower. Your reaction time from stumble to recovery lengthens. That's the gap where falls happen. A 25-year-old stumbles and catches themselves in about 200 milliseconds. A 70-year-old with depleted type II fibers takes 400 to 600 milliseconds. That extra fraction of a second is the difference between catching yourself and breaking a hip. And breaking a hip after 65 is not a minor event. The statistics are sobering. Approximately 20 to 30% of older adults who fracture a hip will die within 1 year of the injury. Not from the fracture itself, but from the cascade: immobility, pneumonia, blood clots, depression, loss of independence. A hip fracture in an older adult is a life-altering event, and it almost always begins with legs that couldn't react fast enough. Walking doesn't rebuild type II fibers. Gentle stretching doesn't rebuild them. Your body only maintains what it's forced to maintain, and if you're not demanding fast, forceful contractions from your legs, your body reads that as permission to let those fibers atrophy. So that's the first mechanism: fiber-specific muscle loss. The second mechanism is what happens to your fascia and your tendons. Your Achilles tendon, the thick band running from your calf to your heel, is arguably the most important tendon in your entire body for staying mobile. It stores and releases elastic energy every time you take a step. Think of it like a rubber band. When you push off with your foot, the Achilles stretches and then snaps back, propelling you forward. In a healthy tendon, the collagen fibers are aligned in parallel rows, almost like uncooked spaghetti laid side by side. As you age and as you reduce the variety of loads you put through that tendon, those fibers begin to cross-link haphazardly. The tendon gets stiffer, but not in a useful way. It gets stiffer in a way that reduces its ability to absorb shock and release energy. Your steps get shorter, your ankles lose range. You start shuffling, and that shuffle isn't a character trait of aging. It's a symptom of tendon degradation that is reversible with the right stimulus. The same process hits your plantar fascia, your patellar tendon below your kneecap, and the connective tissue surrounding your hip joint. Without varied progressive loading, these tissues dry out. They lose their elasticity. They become injury-prone. And when a stiff tendon meets an unexpected force, a misstep, a twist, an uneven sidewalk, it doesn't flex, it tears. Or worse, it transmits that force straight into the joint, accelerating arthritis and cartilage breakdown. The third mechanism, and this is the one people know the least about, is proprioceptive decline. Proprioception is your body's ability to sense where it is in space without looking. Close your eyes right now and touch your nose. The fact that you can do that is proprioception. Your ankles, your knees, your hips, they're packed with proprioceptive nerve endings called mechanoreceptors. These receptors send thousands of microsignals per second to your brain, telling it exactly how much you're swaying, how your weight is distributed, whether the ground beneath you is level. After 60, the density of these receptors decreases. The signals slow down. Your brain starts getting a blurry picture of where your body is in space. This is why older adults feel unsteady, even when their muscles are reasonably strong. The hardware might be adequate, but the software, the communication network between your legs and your brain, is degrading, and almost no conventional exercise program addresses this directly. Your doctor tells you to walk more. Your physical therapist gives you a sheet of seated leg lifts. None of that forces your proprioceptive system to sharpen itself. It stays dull, and you keep feeling unsteady. And then one day you step off a curb at a slightly wrong angle, and your brain doesn't process the correction fast enough, and that's the fall that changes everything. So those are your three enemies: type II muscle fiber loss, tendon and fascial stiffening, and proprioceptive decline. Every mobility problem you experience after 60 traces back to one or more of these three mechanisms. The stiffness when you get out of bed, the hesitation at the top of a staircase, the way you avoid uneven ground, the subtle daily shrinking of your world, all of it connects to these three things. Now here's the good news, and I want to be very clear about this because the research is unambiguous. All three are reversible, not just manageable, reversible. A landmark 2019 study from the University of Birmingham found that adults in their 70s who began targeted resistance training produced muscle protein at rates comparable to adults in their 20s. Their bodies hadn't lost the ability to build. They'd simply stopped receiving the signal to do so. A similar principle applies to tendons. For decades, the medical consensus was that tendons in older adults were essentially static. They couldn't remodel. That consensus has been overturned. We now know that tendons respond to mechanical loading at any age. The collagen turnover is slower, yes, but it happens. Given the right type of load applied consistently, an Achilles tendon in a 70-year-old will reorganize its collagen architecture just as a 30-year-old's will. It just needs more patience. And proprioception, your nervous system's spatial awareness, is perhaps the most plastic of all three. The brain is remarkably good at rewiring balance pathways when forced to do so. Studies on neuroplasticity in older adults consistently show that challenging balance tasks, performed daily, produce measurable improvements in postural stability within weeks. Not months, weeks. Your body is waiting for instructions. These 3 movements are those instructions. Let's begin. Movement number 1. I call this the slow sit to stand. You already know how to sit down and stand up. You do it dozens of times a day. But the way most people do it after 60 is optimized for compensation, not for strength. You use your hands on the armrests. You lean forward and use momentum. You fall into the chair rather than lowering yourself. Every one of those compensations is your body's way of bypassing weakened muscles. And every time you bypass them, you accelerate their decline. You're essentially telling your quadriceps and glutes, I don't need you for this. And your body listens. It always listens. Here's how this movement works and why it's so effective. When you lower yourself slowly into a chair without using your hands, you're performing what's called an eccentric contraction of your quadriceps, the large muscles on the front of your thighs. Eccentric means the muscle is lengthening under load. This is profoundly important because eccentric contractions are the single most potent stimulus for type II fiber recruitment in older adults. A 2020 meta-analysis in the Journal of Gerontology reviewed 41 studies and concluded that eccentric-focused exercises produced significantly greater improvements in muscle power, not just strength, but power, which is strength multiplied by speed, in adults over 65 compared to concentric or isometric exercises. Why does eccentric loading work so well? Because lowering a load requires your muscle to act as a brake. It's resisting gravity while elongating. This produces higher mechanical tension per motor unit than lifting does. And your body interprets that high tension as a survival signal. It responds by reinforcing the very fibers that generated that tension, your type II fibers, the ones you're losing fastest, the ones that save your life when you trip. Here's exactly what you do. Stand in front of a sturdy chair. A dining chair works perfectly. Not a soft, low sofa, a firm chair with a seat roughly at knee height. Your feet are hip-width apart, about 6 inches from the front edge of the seat. Your arms are crossed over your chest, or extended straight in front of you for balance. Now, push your hips back as though you're reaching for the seat behind you, and lower yourself as slowly as you possibly can. I mean painfully slow. You want the lowering phase to take a full 5 seconds. Count in your head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your glutes touch the seat. Do not plop down. The plop is the cheat. The slowness is the medicine. Once you're seated, you can use your hands on the chair or your thighs to stand back up if you need to. That's fine. We're prioritizing the lowering phase because that's where the eccentric magic happens. As you get stronger over the weeks, you'll start standing back up without your hands as well. But for now, the descent is the focus. 5 repetitions, rest for 60 seconds, 5 more repetitions. That's 1 set. Do 2 sets per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, or both together. That's 20 total repetitions, and it'll take you less than 5 minutes. Here's what you'll notice. The first few days, your thighs will burn. They may feel sore the next morning. That soreness is called delayed onset muscle soreness, and in this context, it's a positive sign. It means you've applied a stimulus your muscles haven't experienced in a long time, and they're responding. The soreness fades as your muscles adapt, usually within 4 to 7 days. Within 2 weeks, most of my patients report that getting out of bed feels easier. They don't think about sitting down anymore. They feel a solidity in their thighs that they hadn't felt in years. By week 4, many can perform the entire movement, both lowering and rising, without any hand assistance. And the reason is straightforward. You've reactivated the type II fibers that were going dormant because nothing in your daily life was asking them to work hard enough. As you progress, you can increase the challenge. Slow the descent to 8 seconds. Hold a light weight against your chest, a book, a jug of water. Lower yourself to a slightly lower surface. Each of these progressions increases the eccentric demand and accelerates the adaptation. The basic movement, with no equipment, done consistently, is enough to produce meaningful results. Now, I promised you that the second movement targets your tendons and fascia. And this one surprises people because it looks so simple that they assume it can't possibly be doing much. They're wrong. Movement number 2, the heel drop. Stand on the edge of a step. A staircase in your house, a curb, a thick book on the floor, anything that gives you a 2 to 4-inch ledge. Hold onto a railing or a wall for balance. Position the balls of your feet on the edge so your heels are hanging off into space. Now rise up onto your toes, a standard calf raise, and then slowly, over 3 to 4 seconds, lower your heels below the level of the step. You'll feel a deep stretch through your calves and into your Achilles tendon. That's the working zone. That lowering phase, there it is again, the eccentric contraction, is what restructures your Achilles tendon at the cellular level. Let me explain what I mean by that. In 1998, a Swedish orthopedic surgeon named Håkan Alfredsson essentially stumbled onto a protocol that transformed tendon rehabilitation. He had chronic Achilles pain himself, and he deliberately tried to make it worse by doing heavy eccentric heel drops so his surgeons would agree to operate. Instead, the pain disappeared. What he discovered was that heavy, slow eccentric loading causes the body to break down disorganized collagen in the tendon and replace it with properly aligned fibers. The tendon doesn't just get stronger, it gets reorganized. The chaotic cross-linking I described earlier begins to undo itself. The tendon regains its elasticity, its spring-like quality, its ability to store and release energy. This happens through a process called mechanotransduction, the conversion of mechanical force into cellular signaling. When you load the tendon eccentrically, the tenocytes, the living cells within the tendon, sense the strain and upregulate the production of type I collagen, the structural protein that gives the tendon its integrity. Simultaneously, enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases break down the damaged, disorganized collagen. Over weeks and months, the result is a tendon that has literally rebuilt itself from the inside out. Alfredsson's protocol was originally designed for younger athletes with tendinopathy, but subsequent research, particularly a 2017 study from Griffith University in Australia, confirmed that the same mechanism operates in older adults. Participants aged 60 to 78, who performed daily eccentric heel drops for 12 weeks, showed measurable improvements in Achilles tendon structure on ultrasound imaging and significant improvements in gait speed and stride length. Gait speed. Let that sink in. The speed at which you walk is so closely correlated with life expectancy in older adults that researchers have called it the sixth vital sign. A 2011 study in the Journal of the American Medical Association analyzed data from nearly 35,000 older adults and found that every increase of roughly 4 inches per second in gait speed was associated with a meaningful reduction in mortality risk. Faster walking isn't vanity, it's survival, and the Achilles tendon is the engine behind your walking speed. Fix the tendon, fix the speed. Fix the speed, extend the life. Here's your protocol. 3 sets of 15 heel drops, both legs simultaneously to start. Lower over 3 to 4 seconds. Rise back up at normal speed. Rest 60 seconds between sets. Do this once per day. The entire thing takes less than 8 minutes. If you feel mild discomfort in your Achilles or your calves during the first week, that's normal. That's the tendon responding to a load it hasn't seen in years. Some people describe it as a tight, achy feeling, not sharp, not stabbing, just a deep awareness that something is being worked. If you feel sharp pain, reduce the depth of the drop and build up gradually. But mild aching and stiffness is your tendon waking up. Don't fear it, welcome it. After 3 to 4 weeks, progress to single-leg heel drops. Same protocol, 1 leg at a time. This doubles the load on each tendon and accelerates the remodeling process. If single leg is too intense initially, try shifting 60% of your weight onto one leg and 40% to the other. Graduate to full single leg when it feels manageable. Within 8 weeks, you'll notice that your stride feels longer. You'll feel a spring in your step, literally. that you may not have felt in a decade. That's not a metaphor. That's your Achilles tendon functioning the way it was designed to function, storing elastic energy on ground contact and releasing it on push-off. That's how humans are supposed to walk. And most people over 60 have forgotten what it feels like because their tendons have been quietly deteriorating without any intervention. Now, I told you at the beginning that the third movement is the one almost nobody is teaching, and the one that matters most. The reason it matters most is that it addresses the mechanism that underlies almost every fall. Not weakness, not stiffness, but the degradation of the communication system between your legs and your brain. Movement number 3, the eyes closed single leg stand. Before I explain the how, I need you to understand the why, because this one requires a level of intention and presence that the other two don't. Your ankles contain some of the highest concentrations of mechanoreceptors in your entire body. These receptors, Ruffini endings, Pacinian corpuscles, Golgi tendon organs, and muscle spindles, are constantly firing, sending data to your cerebellum about microshifts in balance. When you stand on one leg, the demand on these receptors increases exponentially compared to standing on two legs. Your base of support shrinks dramatically, and your brain has to process a flood of information about swaying, weight distribution, muscle activation. It has to do it in real time, making hundreds of microcorrections per second. When you stand on two legs, balance is easy. Your brain barely has to try. Standing on one leg with your eyes open is moderately challenging. Your visual system picks up a lot of the slack, using the vertical lines of door frames and walls to orient you. But when you close your eyes, you remove visual input from the balance equation entirely. Your brain can no longer rely on the horizon line, or the door frame, or the edge of the counter to orient itself. It is forced, and this is the key word, forced, to rely entirely on proprioceptive data from your feet, ankles, knees, and hips, along with vestibular input from your inner ear. This is an extraordinary stimulus for your nervous system. It's the neurological equivalent of the slow sit-to-stand for your muscles. You're telling your brain, this system matters, invest in it, maintain it, sharpen it, and the brain obeys. It begins dedicating more processing resources to proprioceptive signals. It strengthens the synaptic connections between your mechanoreceptors and your motor cortex. It literally rewires itself to keep you upright. A 2021 study published in the British Medical Journal followed nearly 2,000 adults over the age of 50 and found that the inability to stand on one leg for 10 seconds with eyes open was associated with nearly double the risk of all-cause mortality over the following 7 years. The researchers called it one of the simplest and most powerful assessments of biological aging available. Think about that. A 10-second balance test predicts your risk of dying more accurately than many blood panels. But here's what I want you to understand. That test isn't just diagnostic. It's therapeutic. The test itself, when repeated daily, becomes the treatment. Every second you spend wobbling on one leg with your eyes closed is a second your brain spends rebuilding pathways that keep you safe on icy pavement, on a gravel path, in a dark bathroom at 2 in the morning when you get up to use the toilet, the exact scenarios where falls actually happen. Here's how you do it safely. Stand next to a counter, a sturdy table, or a wall. Place your fingertips lightly on the surface. Don't grip, just touch. Lift one foot off the ground, bending that knee slightly so the foot is a few inches behind you. Stand on the other leg. Find your balance. Take a breath. Now close your eyes. You will sway. You might last 3 seconds the first time. That's fine. That's not failure. That sway is information. Every wobble is your brain receiving a signal it hasn't received with this intensity in years. And every wobble is your brain beginning to rebuild the neural pathways that process that signal. The wobble is the workout. The instability is the stimulus. The goal is to build toward 30 seconds on each leg with your eyes closed. For most people over 60, this takes 4 to 6 weeks of daily practice. Start with 3 attempts on each leg, twice a day. Use your fingertips on the counter as needed. Over time, lighten your touch. Then hover your hand above the surface without quite touching. Then move your hand to your side. Here's an important progression most people don't know about. Once you can hold 30 seconds with eyes closed on a flat surface, try doing it on a folded towel. The soft, unstable surface further challenges your mechanoreceptors. Your ankle has to work harder to stabilize. Your brain gets an even more complex signal to process. This is how you build the kind of deep, resilient balance that keeps you safe in the real world where surfaces are uneven and conditions are unpredictable. The progression matters. Don't rush it. This isn't about proving something. It's about rebuilding a system. Each stage of progression gives your nervous system time to consolidate the gains before taking on a greater challenge. I want to tell you about a patient of mine, 78 years old, former school teacher. She came to me after her second fall in 6 months. She'd cracked a rib the first time, fractured her wrist the second. Her daughter had started talking about assisted living. Her doctor told her she had age-related balance decline and prescribed a walker. She was devastated. She told me, sitting in my office with tears in her eyes, that she felt like her life was being taken from her one piece at a time. I assessed her. Her leg strength was below average but not dramatically so. Her Achilles tendons were stiff. She could barely get her toes pointed upward past neutral. And her single leg balance with eyes closed was less than 2 seconds on either side. Her muscles were weakened, her tendons had dried out, and her proprioceptive system had atrophied. From years of cautious, flat-ground, minimal-demand movement, we did 3 things: the slow sit-to-stand, the heel drops, and the eyes-closed single-leg stand. Nothing else. 15 minutes a day. I told her that the only thing I needed from her was consistency, every single day. No excuses, no skipped days, 15 minutes. After 4 weeks, she could stand on one leg with her eyes closed for 9 seconds. Her sit-to-stand was smooth and controlled without her hands. She reported feeling more planted. As she put it, more grounded when she walked. After 8 weeks, she could stand on one leg with her eyes closed for 22 seconds. Her gait speed had increased by 18%. She told me she'd walk to the mailbox and back without thinking about falling for the first time in 2 years. She told her daughter the conversation about assisted living was over. She never used the walker. Not once. She wasn't exceptional, she was typical. Her body wasn't broken, it was understimulated. The moment we gave it the right signals, the right mechanical demands, delivered consistently, it responded, because that's what human bodies do. They adapt to what you ask of them. The tragedy is that most people over 60 aren't asking for anything, and their bodies are adapting to that too. They're adapting to nothing, and the adaptation to nothing is decline. Now let me pull all of this together for you with some important practical notes. These 3 movements work because they each target a specific, well-documented mechanism of age-related mobility loss. The slow sit-to-stand rebuilds the type II fast-twitch muscle fibers in your quadriceps and glutes that conventional walking fails to maintain. The heel drop restructures your Achilles tendon at the collagen level, restoring the elastic energy storage that gives your gait its speed and fluidity. The eyes-closed single-leg stand forces your nervous system to reinvest in the proprioceptive pathways that keep you stable on uneven ground, in dim lighting, and during unexpected perturbations. Together, they form a complete intervention for the 3 pillars of leg function: strength, elasticity, and balance. Miss any one of them, and you leave a gap that the other 2 can't fill. Strong legs with stiff tendons still shuffle. Springy tendons with poor balance still stumble. Good balance with weak muscles still collapses under load. You need all 3. Here's your daily protocol. Do this every single day. No days off for the first 12 weeks. Consistency is more important than intensity. You don't need to push through pain. You don't need to break records. You need to show up for 15 minutes and give your body a reason to rebuild. Start with the eyes-closed single-leg stand. 3 attempts on each leg. This wakes up your nervous system and primes your balance centers. Then do the slow sit to stand. 2 sets of 5 repetitions with 60 seconds rest between sets. Then finish with the heel drops. 3 sets of 15 on both legs, progressing to single leg when you feel ready. The entire sequence takes 12 to 15 minutes. You can do it before breakfast. You can do it during a commercial break. You can do it in your kitchen while coffee brews. There is no barrier to entry here. No gym membership, no special clothing, no equipment, just you, a chair, a step, and a wall. 2 rules. First, never do these movements in socks on a slippery floor, bare feet on a non-slip surface, or shoes with grip. A fall during a balance exercise defeats the purpose entirely. Safety is non-negotiable. Second, mild muscular discomfort is expected and normal, especially during the first 2 weeks. Sharp, acute pain is not. If something feels wrong, truly wrong, not just unfamiliar, stop and consult a professional. There is a critical difference between the productive discomfort of tissues being challenged and the warning signal of something being damaged. Learn to distinguish between the two. Now I want to address something because I know some of you are thinking it. You're thinking it can't be this simple, and I understand that skepticism. We've been conditioned to believe that meaningful health interventions require expensive equipment, complicated programs, expert supervision, supplements, gadgets, apps with monthly subscriptions. But the research doesn't support that belief. What the research supports, overwhelmingly, across hundreds of studies and thousands of participants, is that the human body over 60 retains a remarkable capacity for adaptation. It builds muscle when given the signal to build. It restructures tendons when given the load to restructure them. It sharpens neural pathways when given the stimulus to sharpen them. The problem has never been that your body can't respond. The problem is that nobody gave it the right thing to respond to. The medical system tells you to stay active without specifying what active means. Walking is fine. Swimming is fine. They're good for your cardiovascular system, but they don't apply the specific mechanical signals that preserve the 3 systems. You need eccentric muscular loading. You need progressive tendon stress. You need proprioceptive challenge. Those are precise interventions, not vague lifestyle recommendations. These 3 movements are those precise interventions. I want to leave you with one more piece of data because I think it captures the stakes of what we're talking about. A 2018 longitudinal study from the University of Sydney tracked 1,700 adults over the age of 60 for a median of 7 years. The strongest predictor of whether those adults maintained independent living, stronger than income, stronger than social support, stronger than body mass index, stronger even than cognitive test scores, was lower limb function. The strength of their legs, the speed of their gait, the quality of their balance. Those 3 variables predicted independence more reliably than anything else the researchers measured. Your legs are not just how you move. They are how you live. They are how you stay in your home, in your community, in your life. They are how you play with your grandchildren, how you walk through a park with someone you love, how you carry groceries, how you travel, how you remain a full participant in your own existence. And the extraordinary news, the news I wish every person over 60 could hear, is that the window for improving them never fully closes. It narrows, yes. The adaptations come slower at 80 than at 65, but they come. The biology is clear. The evidence is overwhelming. The capacity is there. It's always been there. It is open right now today for you. 15 minutes, 3 movements, start tomorrow morning. And next week, when that chair feels a little easier, when that step feels a little steadier, when you catch yourself standing a little taller, you'll know exactly why. Your body heard you. It always does. And if you found this useful, share it with someone you love who needs to hear it. Because the person who needs this most probably isn't looking for it. They've probably already accepted a version of their future that doesn't have to be true. They've been told this is just how it goes. Joints wear out, balance fades, the world gets smaller. It doesn't have to. Let's change that.